In the 1950s, there was a cognitive revolution in psychology. Radical behaviorists such as B.F. Skinner believed that conditioning theory was sufficient to explain all human behavior. In the 1950s, when computers were starting to be introduced to the world, there was a new idea coming to psychology, that like a computer, the brain was an active processing unit, and that there was an extra step in between stimulus, response, and reinforcer. For therapy, Freud had already spread ideas about the unconscious mind and spoke about cognitive processes. In Europe, the mind was recognized in treatment. However, in America, behaviorists such as Skinner were looking at therapy in a different way. They believed that in order for something to be scientific, it had to be observable. Many approaches are still used today from this era, such as systematic desensitization, behavioral activation, and assertiveness training. Albert Ellis developed a treatment called rational emotive therapy, where he recognized cognitive distortions in patients, and, frustrated by the time it taken to do psychodynamic approach, Ellis combined behavioral approaches with cognitive to help patients. Albert Ellis created the cognitive ABC technique for exploring a recent incident. This is where we look at an activating event, the belief triggered by the event, and the consequence in the body emotionally and physically. One example of this would be a person who is socially phobic. Their trigger, someone giving them eye contact. Their cognition, I'm being too quiet, people think I'm boring. And their consequence, increased perspiration and shaking. Aaron Beck, unlike Albert Ellis, started out as a clinician and therefore brought in the principles of guided discovery. He also explored further how the past created beliefs. Aaron Beck introduced the cognitive triad theory. The theory suggests that we all hold deep-rooted beliefs about the self, others, and the world. Podesky's five-area model is often used to explain surface-level cognition, behavior, and body reactions. Beck's cognitive triad and the intermediary beliefs will be covered in a future video. The basics of CBT lie in the following model. The situation is whatever triggered the set of cognitions, emotional, physical responses, and the behaviors we choose to put in. Cognitions are appraisals of what is happening. Ones that Beck was particularly interested in was distorted cognitions. In fear, this is often catastrophic thinking. In depression, this is often personalization and all-or-nothing thinking. In emotions and feelings, we have the core 5 emotions and the array of feelings someone can use to explain a multitude of different physical and cognitive changes happening at one time. I will explain the difference between emotion and feelings in a future video. Some examples of physical changes can be changes in heartbeat, breathing, sleep, and energy levels. And finally, we have behavior. Behaviors that are chosen by the person as the best way to reduce distress in the short term. In depression, this is often isolation and withdrawal. In anxiety, it's often escape or avoidance.